and other things with Great White's guitarist Mark Kendall that joins us live right now. How are you, Mark?
How you doing, Eddie?
I'm good. So take me back to the days of Crank Out the Metal. Was that what you guys were feeling at the time, or was that what you thought you had to do for the era?
Well, it was funny. It was a little bit different. We were just a guitar, bass, and drum band. It was one guitar, and there was a lot of. We were kind of, the bands around that time. Like the Scorpions and Judas Priest and bands like that we were listening to were kind of underground. They were kind of flying under the radar. And we listened to a lot of that back then, and it was just a really early part of our writing, and we were just, we're cranking it out.
What are your thoughts when you hear a song like that? I mean, you've never really done that in your live set in a long time, have you?
My kids, every once in a while, they'll break it out. In fact, not that long ago, my daughter had it, and I heard it, and I go, that stuff is still holding up.
I always loved the riff, and, Jack going full-on metal with the scream at the end and all that. What year was that first record?
What happened was, when we first met Alan Niven and stuff, and Dokken told him about us, and he brought in Michael Wagner, who was the full-blown metal accept guy, and he came over from Germany and everything. So he really wanted to break. He had Jack. He goes, be evil, and he really wanted it. But that was in 1982 is when we made the EP, which didn't have Stick It, but it had like On Their Knees and a couple other tracks that ended up being on that album. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I know Wagner. For people that don't know, Michael worked with Accept. He mixed Master of Puppets. Michael was certainly the guy for a while, not only with metal, but later on in the 80s, more commercial hard rock, too. He did White Lion and a bunch of other stuff.
He did
Skid Row, yeah.
Yeah.
When you were in that earlier, more metal mode, if you will, was it something that wasn't comfortable to you? Were you always kind of like, well, this, we're really going to kind of go off in a little bit more of a bluesy direction, or did you think that you were going to continue? Was there a divided decision in the band as to which kind of path you wanted to follow?
Well, what happened was, I was always into people like Blackmore and ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons, and I had all those influences really early. In fact, when I was 14, I was in a band that played nothing but Santana.
Oh, wow. So you had both worlds going.
So, yeah. But what happened was, on our second album, I believe, we added a keyboard on a couple songs, and then kind of added a rhythm guitar player live, which was Michael Lardy, and my influences, more blues influences, just started to show up, and it was a different band once we added another guitar and keyboard and stuff, and it just went into more of a blues direction. It wasn't anything that we pre-planned or whatever. It just kind of evolved into that.
Because when I look at Great White and I think about Great White, I just actually wrote a chapter on you guys that's going to be in my next book, which is going to come out next year. And I talked a little bit about this, when I go through the bands that I write about and my thoughts about them and stuff. And to me, Great White is a band that there's two different perceptions of Great White, and I never thought either of them were really totally accurate. There's that world, which was a very much a metal band, and then there was, and it's a term I absolutely hate. I hate even saying it, but there's the quote-unquote hair band, if you will. And I never thought of Great White really in either world. I always thought you guys were cut from a little bit of a different cloth, more of a blues-based 70s kind of, maybe more in the world of like a Humble Pie or something than anything to do with either of those worlds. And obviously the British hard rock of the bands you covered, like a Mott the Hoople or something like that. I mean, I actually got that as the more down the line world of Great White than either of those other two worlds that you kind of were lumped into at one point.
Right, and it was also the fashion, because we were wearing, everybody was Motley Crue, and all of us, we were all getting our clothes made by the same guy, and we did have long hair. So, you kind of get tied in with the fashion, and they just, I guess a journalist's easy way out is just to lump it all into, call it, the hair metal or whatever, And it never really bothered me. I've always just felt we were just pretty much, like you said, a straight-ahead blues kind of rock band,
Well, we could talk about history all we want here, but obviously the newest thing with you guys is having a new record out. Your first with Terry Luce as your lead singer, called Elation, and obviously it's been well documented that there was a division with your former singer Jack Russell, who obviously was such an enormous part of the band. Tell me about we had Jack on the TV show and he gave his thoughts on his side of that, but if you can give us your take on what went down there and how things are going with Terry on board.
Well, just the past few years, Jack was kind of spiraling in the wrong direction, and and his health started failing, and he was having struggles with his addictions and stuff, and I pretty much make myself available for anybody struggling. I even reach out to people, just to make myself available to just be a sober friend, basically, and I can't really sponsor anybody else, but I tried, my darndest to try to get him going on a good path, and he just, at one point I just kind of had to back off. I even spoke to people about it, that are in the program, that are what they call old timers, that have 30 plus years sobriety, and I just asking questions like, is there anything else I can be doing, to get him to go, get healthy or whatever? And they're like, it's hard if a person doesn't want it, But, that's all it was, and he got so bad to where he wasn't mobile anymore, and he couldn't really perform, so we're going to cancel a bunch of shows, but we have 30 shows booked. So we had heard that Terry Luce was kind of a good guy to go to on the fly or whatever. And, we didn't want to get in a bad spot with all the promoters and stuff around the country when we had all these shows going. So, Jack was cool with us getting somebody to fill in for him. And, the door was always open for a healthy Jack Russell. I mean, but the date kept changing on when he was going to come back. And, we're hoping he's getting well. And then the last I heard, he was coming back in May of 2012, and then out of the blue came the Facebook post which was he was making his own Great White or whatever, and so I don't know what to say about that.
Well, before you had Terry, and for people that don't know, Terry Luce is the singer in Great White now, in your Great White, and Terry is also the band and the singer from the band XYZ. But there was a short period of time where Janie Lane was singing for you, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Terry was always our favorite choice, but in the early stages when it was just people filling in or whatever. A couple promoters felt like Janie Lane was the bigger name, and so we go, okay, yeah, and our manager managed him anyways, and so I welcomed it, and he was completely professional. He was really prepared. I guess his wife was a huge Great White fan, so he was driving around playing Great White 24/7. I mean, he had it going in his house, and he really came in into the rehearsals completely prepared. He was on time. He was just he delivered the songs really well and everything. And then I think he might have had a little slip or something because he couldn't come out. And our choice really was Terry all along, but like I said, it was a promoter issue we had. But I think Janie did about 10 shows. And Terry when Jack announced that he was making his own band or whatever, Terry done like well over 80 shows. So, I mean, we were so used to him and everything. It wasn't even a case where we go, hey, well, now Jack can't come back, so who are we going to audition or whatever? We knew we wanted Terry, and he welcomed the idea. So
yeah, it's just for me listening. It's kind of, and I don't know if ironic is the right word, but Jack's sobriety was an issue, and then a guy comes in to fill the void, if you will, even if temporarily, who obviously, in Janie Lane, who had notorious sobriety issues, which tragically led to his death. But,
yeah.
I mean, you had to feel like at some point maybe you were stepping right into another bee's nest there as far as issues on the road where, Janie had some well-documented ones.
Well, yeah, but with it being a filling-in situation, and he was completely sober, and he even had his wife out with him to support that, that deal, and I really tried to help him as well. I mean, I was on the phone with him almost every day on our days off, and, we spoke about it, and, if people didn't realize that he wanted to be sober more than anything, it was just that demons kind of overcame him or whatever, and so it was really unfortunate.
Yeah, it is, Mark, and we're talking live with Mark Kendall of Great White. You're right, because when we had him, one of the last things he ever did was he was on my TV show, and he was great that day. People ask me all the time because he passed away just a couple weeks after he taped the show with us. And,
That's right.
And people ask me all the time, like, wow, did you see anything that day, or was he messed up that day? And I got to tell you, he was not. I mean, the only thing I kind of remember about him was he was seemed a little frail to me, a little thin, but he was completely lucid and in the moment and laughing and having a great time. And that kind of leads into why I'm asking you, and we're going to talk, of course, about what you're doing now, but the situation with Jack, because I saw shows in the end there with Jack singing with you. I mean, I saw you guys play in Jersey. I don't know if you recall, it was a show that I hosted where Jack, basically had to sit down the whole show. And certainly had his issues, but do you think, and I know it's not in anybody's best interest to have two great whites out there, or two different versions, or slightly versions, or whatever you want to call it, but
yeah.
do you, I mean, he is a guy that you started this thing with so many years ago, and I just had the members of Twisted Sister in here for a while, and we talked about this, that they've had huge issues in their career as a band. I was the one who actually reunited them 11 years ago, and ever since they haven't stopped, and they talked just in the last couple hours about all these issues and problems that they had amongst themselves, to who pulled a gun on who at one point, and all this craziness. But there was, they did something like Great White that no one can take away from them. They made a mark. They had success. They had a big hit. So I'm not asking you about any sort of reunion question. I know you're happy with where the band is now. But what I'm really trying to get at is there's got to be a side to you that, no matter what happens, you must want to know if he's doing okay. Like, from a health standpoint, do you keep tabs on him?
Absolutely. And I've said it before. I mean, I've been friends with this guy like more than half my life.
That's my point. Yeah.
I've put the guitars away, don't sing, and we're the best of friends. I mean, I want him sober more than anything, of course I want him to be healthy. I mean, this isn't a thing that stemmed out of hatred or we weren't getting along and we just couldn't do it anymore. He basically chose this really dark road, and it destroyed his body, and he couldn't perform, and it's just addiction is so ugly, I can't even explain it. But
he seemed fine on my TV show when he was on, Mark, but then again, like I said, so did Janie. But do you know, I mean, was that a temporary thing? Do you know if he's cleaned up?
I've seen a couple of YouTubes, and he doesn't look that good to me. I mean, only because I know what he looks like when he's doing really well. I mean, to me, he looks a little bit sick, the eyes sunken in the head and the really frail thing. And so, I don't know if that's because of the damage, and maybe he's doing good and he's on a slow, recovery path or something. I'm not sure, but You know, it's frustrating. I mean, you know, when you have addiction really bad, you really have to fight one day at a time, and that's what I tell all the newcomers, man. You know, this is about one day at a time. This isn't about I'll never do this again, or you know, you can't have that mindset because it sounds way too long for one thing. The way you get sober is you take the day you're in, and you fight your heart out to get through the day, and just stay sober one day at a time. And
Mark, do you speak from experience? You've had?
Yeah, definitely. You know, for the last 21 years, I mean, I've had my slips or whatever. Just the last over 4 years now, I have of true recovery to where I've got myself involved in helping others, and it just helps me, you know, stay in my own recovery. And, you know, in the past, I could stay sober for a few years or whatever, but I never was, it was almost like just exit alcohol. And, you know, it was a beer habit. I mean, luckily for me, you know, I didn't just like wail on vodka or anything, but it's still alcohol. And I definitely had a habit with it. You know, I do have a habit with it, and I've just made a decision in my life to change my life. I even quit smoking, man.
Well, good for you, man. That could probably, that might have been, well, that may have been causing you, I mean, some say, I never forget reading an interview with Ozzy, and he said that of all the drugs and alcohol and all the addictions he had in his life, the hardest thing of everything to stop doing for him was smoking.
Yeah, and, you know, I've been smoking since I was a teenager, so it's kind of a big deal. It's something I had to do, but like the last year, I just needed to, you know, I knew I was going to do it. I just needed to like kind of quit in my head first before I actually made the plunge. But, you know, they have this electronic cigarette
that
really helps you
get
through the real difficult moments. And, you know, nicotine on its own is not bad for you. It's all the thousands of other things they put in it that kill you, so it's a good tool. But
well, it's good. Yeah. So you've kicked that habit, which, you know, is no small feat by anybody's account. I mean, I'm lucky I never smoked, but I mean, from people I talk to, that is really tough to do. So,
but I feel amazing. I feel my energy so much better. My blood pressure's normal. I'm like, you know, I'm really feeling good. So it's like, I'm feeling the rewards from it.
Well, see, I just think about myself. I'm such a mess all the time anyway that if I did drugs and smoked, how worse off I'd be. So that's how I think about it.
Exactly. I get it. Yeah, right. I know. Life's hard enough, man.
Exactly.
All the bad things for you. You know?
Mark Kendall of Great White is my guest. The brand new album is called Elation, and it is available now. So let's talk about this album a little bit. It's been out for a little while. Right. Like I said, it's your first with Terry singing. And listen, it's no secret here, and I talk to bands every day on countless platforms, publicly, privately. It's getting so difficult for bands to sell new music, and I'm not just talking about bands like Great White or Twisted Sister or whoever I have on this show. I'm talking about from Aerosmith on down, the mega bands on down. You know, they'll open with these great first weeks and then it just disappears. And it's a huge point of frustration for so many bands. And you guys are not only in the position where you're selling a new record from Great White, but you're also selling the record and selling the fact that you have a new lead singer, where the guy who's coming, you know, who he's replacing is certainly, you know, the focal was the focal and vocal point of the band. So tell me how this experience has been. Has it been harder than you thought it would be? Easier? Has most of the Great White fans accepted it? Are there people still undecided? What have you guys experienced since this record's been out and Terry's been on board?
Well, first of all, the creative energy has just been completely electric, and we've really, everybody just felt free, and we just really just come up with things on the fly. And Terry's energy is so positive. He's really a great guy to be around, and he's super good, great musician and great singer. And, you know, as far as record sales. I mean, the album's actually selling better than our last couple, but it's, I know what you mean about, the thing about when
I'm not. And by the way, Mark, just so I'm clear, I'm not singling you guys out at all. This is a whole sea change in our industry where it's almost like back in the day, records were put out. You toured to sell an album, which is where you made your money. Now it's a total 180. The album is a promotional piece to sustain the tour where the money's made. So I'm just wondering how you guys are approaching that, especially now with the key member change in the group.
Well, yeah, and obviously when we had the MTVs and radio was so live, and we had record stores and all that, it's a completely different world. And now, my whole thing, I'm not really that concerned. Well, it'd be great to sell a ton of records, obviously, but my whole thing is that I just want people to hear our music. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, I will make copies for them if they're going to listen to it.
Well, that's happening a lot. Like, bands are now almost like, hey, if I can sell this, it's gravy. It's almost like any way to get it in the marketplace. Just today, some good friends of mine, the band Buck Cherry, I just noticed they just released their first new song in a while, and they are giving it away today. Just go to the site and download it. And that is just, it's unfortunate because I miss the days that you're talking about, the days of record stores and the days where, guys like us that played this music were actually serviced CDs, which I still long for. I mean, I miss all that, but it is a complete change where it's just get the stuff heard any way you can, and that is so important, because what bums me out about what I'm talking about with where the sales are today is there is so much really good new music from bands that have been around 20, 30, 40 years that so few people are being exposed to because there's the support system just isn't there.
Yeah, the airplay and stuff, it's all internet and, satellite or whatever. It's like all the classic radio stations it's basically, Tom Petty, 1983, Bob Seger, all the old, 80s, whatever. So the venues aren't even, it's like you almost have to be creative just to find the music, And like you said, people are coming out with great people like Jack Blades and Aerosmith or whatever, Van Halen, and all these bands are coming.
Oh, the new Aerosmith. I mean, I got a stack of stuff. Black Country Communion. I mean, I'm looking through it right now. Steven Adler's new album is really solid. I mean, Slash's album was great. I'm going through a pile of stuff right here that's just, that's so good, and it seems like. It's a combination of not the support system not being there, and I don't know, maybe people have their head, and I'm not even joking about this, maybe people are so consumed with their smartphones and and texting and just immersed that it almost seems like there's more distractions in people's world than that music is almost like, well, if it falls in my lap, great, but otherwise I'm not really going to worry about it.
Great point. Great point.
I mean, I see it all the time, and I try on this show, and even on our TV show, we're always telling people about what these bands are doing now and playing that music for them. And I do it all the time on this show because what frustrates me is there's so much that's good. If it sucked, that would be one thing.
Sure.
But it's a lot of good stuff and I get calls from people every week on this show like, hey, whatever happened to fill in the blank? And the truth is they released 3 albums in the last 4 years. Where were you?
And look at ZZ Top has released a ton of records that flew under the radar. I remember an album called Rhythm Mean that was just amazing. I mean, so it's bands like you said that are even the upper echelon bands are struggling to get their music heard. It's this is the reason the bands are, AC/DC always come with, great music, new music. But what keeps all these bands rolling forward, and I know, well, at least for me, I know for sure, is the creative thing. I need to make new music. I'm not, Mr. Oldies band boy that's just going to go out there and play Rock Me,
Right.
I need to make new music for, or else I'm going to go out there and just go through the motions, and I'm not even willing to do that. The new music is what keeps me motivated, and I'm sure I can speak for everyone,
So the new Great White album, which is called Elation, and before I let you go, I'm certainly going to play something from it. But you've played
You have
some.
a new mixes?
Yes, I do. I got complicated. I'm going to play that. But tell me about you know, the plan going forward with Great White. I know that you're doing, dates, and I know that I'm going to see you guys in March on the Monsters of Rock cruise, which I look forward to, and I'm hosting for the second year, so that'll be a lot of fun. But is it sporadic stuff like that, or are you going to be able to put together like a run of dates?
Well, we've been playing a lot. I mean, like just this month we're playing, in Florida. We got tons of shows in California. We got a big show coming up in, I guess it's the End of the World show with, in Detroit with Vince Neil, Queensryche, and Slaughter. So yeah, we're playing.
When is the end of the when is the end of the world again? I missed that memo.
It's on December 21st.
Oh, right.
In Detroit, it's the Masconic Temple or whatever.
Okay.
It's Vince Neil, Queensryche, and Slaughter.
I wasn't worried about the bill. I was just worried about marking the calendar that it was the end of the world, so I didn't.
Well, that's what they said. I don't know. I don't know who made that prediction or what, but we were over in Europe, and that one's just killer. So we're playing a lot of shows. We're trying our hardest to get our music to the people. I mean, we're going and making videos, and our MTV is YouTube, so that's just the way it rolls. But it's a different deal. But even bands like George Lynch, and he's making great music.
I had George and Jeff on the show last week. I mean, I talked to them all, and everybody has a different take on where things are at and where things are headed, and how to best sell their music and get their music heard. And so, I've talked to bands. That's why I'm asking you about this, because I think it's really interesting to get everybody's perspective on it. And everybody seems to have somewhat of a different take on it. That I talk to bands like, hell, man, I just want to give it away. I just want people to hear it. I talk to bands that don't even. I'm not doing new music. Who cares? I'm going to go play the hits and make a living on the road. And I talk to bands that say, yeah, I have to create, I have to do new stuff, or I can't exist. And I see all sides and get all sides of it.
Sure.
But I'm always curious where everybody stands on it.
Well, I'm just thankful there's people like you that do care about the music, that's a huge fan, and you just want to do what you can, having like the metal show, and now you got this great radio show. I mean, this helps a lot to at least give it some attention,
Well, you know what, man? It's
let
almost
people know, that we have music.
Well, for me, Mark, it's almost like a 180 for me too, because when I started in this business, I started doing a radio show 30 years ago, and I did it because I was really into hard rock and heavy metal, and none of it was getting played on the radio, and I needed to share. I'm not a musician. I don't perform. I don't play anything. I needed a way to connect with these bands and to expose to other people the music that I loved. And of course, we all went through the 80s together and the big boom of this stuff and having it be so popular, but it's almost like complete 180 again, because I'm once again in that position to let people know, hey, Great White's still out there. They have a new singer. They have a new album called Elation. Hey, you know what? Twisted Sister is still alive. They were just here a few minutes ago. And that's what I view my role as being, is trying to be that conduit to let many people know about what's going on with these guys. Because, there's part of the responsibility that falls on the fans, too. And I kind of get into this with my callers all the time. You have to do, we're not, tragically MTV is gone for what we know it as, and you have to get out there and do a better job as a fan keeping tabs on these bands, and you have the benefit of something really powerful and really easy, and that's the internet. And, I love, we do a bit on the TV show, Whatever Happened To, or whatever, and it's a great bit, we have fun with it, but I tell people all the time, don't wait for me to come on that metal show and answer the question. If you love a band and you want to know whatever happened to them, Google them, because you'll probably find out that they might be playing a gig down the street in another week, and you should go see them.
Right. Yeah. It takes a little bit more effort from the fans, because everything isn't right in their face like it used to be. Everywhere they go, they're not hearing it, or it's not. They don't have the MTVs and all that. So. Yeah, I totally get it, but like I said, it is people like you that at least help get the music to the people and get the information to them. I'm grateful for that, at least.
Hey, how did you guys...
And our fans. I mean, our fans
Sure.
are amazing. Our fans are still amazing. They're loyal. I mean, we went to Europe. Every show was there's just tons of people. They had our American flags and chanting like with, you know, dirty deeds and dirty, you know, hey, hey, hey. I mean, it was just awesome, you know.
Hey, how did you guys find Terry as your singer? I don't know if we touched on this, but did you do a gig with XYZ? Did you audition them? How did you have open auditions for other guys? How did that work?
We didn't even audition them. Our agent Sullivan actually, I think he handled them before, and he's the one that kind of, I think, told us about. You know, he's a good guy to go to when you need somebody on the fly. And he actually came to Iowa. He had a show that day at M3 Festival, changed his playing time, learned the songs on the planes, and just killed the show. He came up and, you know, he didn't have all the lyrics written out and stuff, but I mean, he literally, we were jamming and doing all this freeform stuff, and it was just awesome. So that's how it all stemmed from that, just that one show. And you know, and then we had Janie Lane. We even had Paul Shortino do one show with us in Sweden, and so it was a little bit of a hodgepodge, but really 11 shows total were done with those other two singers, Janie Lane and Paul Shortino, and then all the other shows, the 100 or so, was Terry.
You know that the singer is the hardest guy to replace in a band. I mean, that's just kind of universally considered.
Sure.
In some worlds, if you see, as the years, days, weeks go by, with all respect to Terry, but if you saw that Jack really had turned a corner and in your mind was completely together, would you envision any scenario in working with him again?
Well, you know, that's the whole thing, is to see it. You know, I'm not seeing it. So, and it's difficult to even make a prediction like that with all the lawsuits going and everything. I mean, you know.
So that's still going, that stuff?
Yeah, it's still going full blown. So, you know, it's really a case of when all that ends and see how he does in his life, you know, if he's going to change or whatever, you know. In the meantime, it's all about the music now, you know. There's no drama. It's just making music, playing music, and having fun, and it's, you know, I'm enjoying that.
Well, that's obviously what it should be about at the end of the day. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about, Mark, before I let you go and we play a track from the new album, is even though I don't think anybody in the current version of Great White that you're in was involved with the version of Great White that played in the tragedy in Rhode Island, right?
No. What it was Jack and I both had kind of left the Great White thing for a while to go off and do solo things. I made a solo band and went off and did that, and he made a solo band and he went on a tour. And I mean, I got the keyboard player for Eric Clapton. I made this total band, you know. And we did a few shows up north, and I got a call from his management saying that his tour was kind of suffering. There wasn't very many people coming, I guess because the music was so drastically different than Great White or whatever. It was more like a Genesis vibe. Mm-hmm. And so I guess people weren't getting that, so he asked if I would go out and to where they could play more Great White material and just like insert a couple of his songs from his solo album. And that's the way that happened. And they had been using this little sparkle thing at the beginning of the show. And I'm like, that's different, you know. And because the shows were kind of small. I mean, one of the shows that they played, it was you could see people bowling from the stage, and I go, I'm going home if you guys use that stuff here.
So, but just to be clear, you didn't actually play the show in Rhode Island, did you?
Yes, yeah, I was there.
You were there.
Yeah, I was totally there.
Oh, okay.
In fact, I still fellowship with people from Rhode Island almost daily. I mean, you know, I still very close to all the people that started the Station Family Fund and everything. They're really dear friends of mine.
Okay, because I wasn't clear if you stayed around for that or you had, you know, because I know that it was a dicey time there as far as the lineup
Sure.
of the band and who was doing what.
Well, it was Jack's solo band and I came out, and I had been playing. I played a few shows before that, the night of the tragedy.
Right.
So I was there the night when the phone cut off, everything that happened.
Right. So have you been? I know that there's benefits and things that happen in that area.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been, active? I know you guys did some stuff in the wake of all that, but have you still kind of maintained a connection to try to help those people?
Oh yeah. The connections on a daily basis. The two main people that started it, Victoria Potvin and Todd King, are like I said, really dear to me. And the benefits tour, as far as that went, that kind of ended. You'd have to talk to them about that, because that's a whole different thing. But as far as creating awareness and stuff like that, I'm always talking in interviews about where to go, and
right.
StationFamilyFund.org. They kind of folded it, but they still do events. And right after it happened, and we were out doing the benefit concerts, we were reaching out to bands, and even as big as Aerosmith, and not really getting replies right away. But as the years went on, bands like the band you just had on, Twisted Sister, got involved, Tesla. I mean, we just had a ton of bands do benefit things, but we were able to create a lot of awareness. We went on Larry King. I mean, we did just a ton of press to try to bring awareness. And not only did we get people like industry types, but a lot of corporations got involved in donating, and so that's what got me back on stage anyways, was when I found out there was a way to help. And the fellowship with the people in Rhode Island has really been the best part of the healing process for me.
Right. Again, Mark Kendall, Great White, is my guest. It's Eddie Trunk. We're live on Sirius XM across America and Canada. The new Great White album is called Elation. I'm going to play a track from it right now. But before we wrap up, Mark, anything else that you want to add? I know that you had this, I guess it started with a single, and then you subsequently had the entire album remixed. Is that what happened?
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, what happened was, we did this album. We wrote, recorded, mixed, and mastered this album in 35 days. And and we even did 4 shows in those 35 days. So, Michael Lardy is our keyboard player. He's a guitar player, songwriter, and he's been our engineer, producer for, almost our whole career. So what ended up happening, we felt that Hard to Say Goodbye could be mixed a little better. And this opportunity kind of presented itself with a guy called George Tutko, who was, kind of responsible for some huge artists. Like, he did huge Rod Stewart records. He did, like, John Cougar Mellencamp, Bob Seger, Boston, Journey, Duran Duran, Cheap Trick. I mean, so his name is really big, and he has a lot of huge albums that he engineered and produced. So when that opportunity presented itself, we wanted him just to mix the one song, and it turned out so good. We were like, I wonder if he'd do the whole record, and we asked him, and he said he'd be happy to. So it just turned out amazing. And it's something that we're always willing to let go of any kind of ego trips if it's going to be anything to do with the song or the delivery of a song or whatever. So
how can fans get the new versions of this?
What's going to happen is in the next week or so, all the download sites will be changed, and then the next cycle of records will have the new mixes.
So if people have the original version, it's going to be, I guess it'll be somewhat of a collector's item, and if they want the other version,
absolutely,
they'll have to get it.
But it really turned out amazing, and he's a taskmaster, and his records. I mean, now when I hear things on the radio, like I'll hear John Cougar Mellencamp, "Ain't That American?" Well, that's George Tutko, So it's kind of neat to have a really high-end pro like that be involved with our production team or whatever. So. kind of neat.
Well, listen, man, it's good to talk to you. And the website for people to keep up with what you guys are doing and the gigs and all that, is it greatwhite.com?
It's greatwhiterocks.com, and yeah, pretty much they keep it updated pretty well, and you can find out where we're up to and where we're playing and what's going on.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with the album and the upcoming shows that you're doing, and hopefully the world doesn't end on 12/21 at that show, and we make it.
Not either, because we got Christmas coming up.
Well, yeah, not only that, but I'm looking forward to the next Monsters of Rock cruise too, to hang out with everybody. So if it's got to end, let's just wait till the end of March, because there's some good stuff coming up.
Not only that, this is my first time playing on water. I mean, this is like a whole different deal. I heard it's pretty fun and eventful, so it should be. We should see a lot of people we know with all the bands.
Oh, there's more bands of people than you could ever imagine. It's like and I'm not saying this negatively. It's so much fun, but I mean, you can't take a step and a foot in one direction or the other without bumping into, especially being in this business is almost as long as you. Everybody out there from the.
That's going to be fun though. Now that we run into guys like Tesla. We just did a couple shows with them, and you see these guys that you toured with back in the day or whatever, and it's a lot of fun, just to hang out. And
well, that's what the guys in Twisted Sister were saying earlier in here. It's like, who would have thought this is where the business would be, is on cruise ships and in casinos. It's kind of turned into like Sinatra, hard rock.
We play a lot of casinos. Even ZZ Top and bands like that, Fleetwood Macs and all these bands, they're all playing casinos, It's just, it's funny, man.
Hey, there's a lot of other stuff. A guy like me, I mean, the fan base is a little bit older, and you're looking for a little something extra to do besides that hour or two you see the band, and nothing wrong with hitting a blackjack table or grabbing a room and having some drinks. So it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. It's just part of the evolution.
I met Billy Gibbons about 4 years ago, and he invited me down to go watch him play at a casino, and it was killer.
Yeah, and some of these casinos have great venues in them, too. Really nice venues.
No doubt.
Well, listen, man, I'm going to play "Complicated," the remix from the new album. I think this one really has that kind of classic Great White vibe to it, and I want my audience to hear this. I think they'll really get into it. So
right on, brother.
We'll fire that up right now. For sure. Elation is the new album from Great White, and I will see you soon, man.
All right, brother. Thanks, man.
You got it.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Mark Kendall of Great White, and here's something from the new album.